Don't come in here frame one and ask my garbage opinion. I firstly need to make this sharp right because it's not doing what I want it to do. I might just do it this way. Da-da, da. Why is it not showing anything? It's not even the fire grenade, it's just Chris's damage. This is really annoying. Yeah, this is the Ocean Neon White soundtrack. I love this soundtrack. Like pretty much every single song that's on the track is a banger. There's one or two that just kind of but otherwise they are all very good. Do I just have this capture my monitors? Will that work? Yeah, it will. Alright. Oh, the infinity. That's probably going to be the way I have to do it for it to come out properly, but that should work. Alright. Whoops. Cool. I mean, I'll try my best to talk through and explain like every single matchup and why I think certain characters go in as well, but I'm curious to hear what other people think if they join in and watch the stream. I did want to start with like, rather than just go in order, but start with like relevant characters, so the characters that people play in the server, and then move on to like the rest of the characters as well. So we can start with Thor. Where is he on this? Oh, there he is. Alright, I think Thor is an interesting matchup. Because in theory, Chris should just get dumped by Thor because Thor just stays in the air forever. But I think the fact that Mighty Spark as a beam only does 80k, and Chris is like ridiculous damage and could actually threaten Thor when, because the thing with high health characters is you can use your life bar as a resource. So when you get hit by some characters, like I was playing against Risen earlier, and he would hit Chris with Trish, and I knew for a fact that there's no chance Chris will die, even if Trish gets the cleanest hit. Alright, back. Yeah, that's another big thing, is we're all going through, like, I think the key things that matter in a Chris matchup is, can Chris kill them, how easily can Chris keep them out, and how likely are they to get hit by a grenade, effectively. I think, yeah, so I'm more inclined to say this is an even matchup. I personally feel like it's Chris favoured, but I think the fact that Thor has effectively guaranteed resets on Chris, and like more Thor teams that are optimized more for like keep away, I think give Chris a much harder time. Because if Chris is ducking, he can't Magnum assists, and Thor, like, unlike when you're in the Magneto matchup, for example, if Magneto does Disruptor, you can Magnum in between them and it will hit Magneto because Disruptor's so minus. If Thor does Spark, Chris will get hit every time because of how quick Spark recovers. So it's Thor can just kind of like mash Spark and make Chris either super jump, in which case he does 200k with a Magnum, a gunshot Magnum, or he gets hit by Spark. I think I'm trying to think of how exactly I want to do the matchup chart as well, because if I'm trying to consider this with, I don't know if it's worth doing it with like just Chris by himself versus another character by themselves, or with assist as well. I'll probably consider both, like Chris by himself and then Chris with Jam Session, because there's no good Chris team without Jam Session. But this is the funny thing about the way we play, is that we have characters that I think, or opinions on matchups that we both, when we play against each other, I think are in each favour. But yeah, I think Thor's the one we'll be divided on, but I do think, because of that, I think it's even. I think they both have strong tools against each other. I think Chris with assist has a much easier time with Thor than, like, Chris gets more from having assists in the matchup than Thor does. But I think the fact that Thor's launcher is punishable by Chris's crouching light, which is a huge part of the matchup, because Thor can't do like crouch S block strings mid-screen safely, I think is a big factor. But overall, I'd say that matchup is fairly even. I also think the Arthur matchup is even. I think I'm actually more inclined to think it's Chris favoured. Let me actually. Just to make these a bit clearer, if they weren't already. Yeah, I think the other a big factor too is Thor still has to respect the grenade. It's only if you Mighty Strike directly into the grenade that it stops being effective. But there's plenty of times where Thor will do a Mighty Strike from just a bit too high and won't actually interact with the flame carpet or the grenade itself. Or he'll hit the grenade, which the grenade will explode, but then the flame carpet will still hit Thor. Because you can't make the grenade itself disappear. But yeah, I think... Yeah, that's a big factor. Arthur being an 850k health zoner is huge, because if he gets hit by one Magnum, that's nearly a quarter of his health. Or a fifth of his health, rather. And I think Arthur's big vulnerability is the fact that if Arthur throws a projectile on the way down, he's so much more likely to get hit by a Magnum. And again, if he gets hit by one Magnum, gunshot Magnum is 430k, and that's over half of Arthur's health. I think, yeah, prone is a big factor. Prone makes all of his grounded projectiles irrelevant, besides axe. But then if he throws an axe, you can Magnum and nullify it. They interact with each other. I think another big factor of the matchup is that Chris can punish gold armor really well. Arthur's an Eris. Oh, yeah, exactly. So Arthur's normal patterns against some characters, where like beams would trade with one hit of a beam, for example, which is fine because Arthur's one hit of a beam is like 30k. But trading with one hit of a Magnum, Chris can get hit by both shots of a crossbow and still dash up, gunshot Magnum. Special projectiles with speed and attacks. Yeah. I think the good thing about the matchup for Arthur is that the grenade is much less relevant. I think for typical Arthur play, the grenade is much less relevant. But for more aggressive Arthurs, yeah, it's a fantastic anti-air against Jump S. And it's also really good when Arthur's in gold armor because it trades with certain gold projectiles with the grenade explosion. And then yeah, there's always the fact that if Arthur hits Chris, Arthur cannot kill Chris. He has to spend like 5 bars in order for Arthur to kill Chris. What's up, Remy? Thanks for joining us. Yeah, I've kind of always wanted to do one of these because I don't think I've ever seen anyone else do it. But here we are. But yeah, I think this is a very even matchup because this is a very skill-based matchup. If one person playing one of the characters is distinctly better than the other, they will win the matchup every time. I think it's so hard to lose the matchup when you're better than the other player. But because Doppelghost and I are like so similar in terms of our skill level, I think it really goes to show just how even it is, because it's like how our normal matches go where there are some times where Doppel will find out a new pattern, or he'll figure out like a gap in Chris's offense, zoning offense, and there's just no chance to throw any projectiles. As to Chris, that is. And then there's times where I've got a complete read on what Doppel's going to do, and I can blow through it easily, and then just kill Arthur in 4 hits. But I think that's what defines it being a very even matchup as well. I think Firebrand is super bad for Chris. I think I'm tempted to put that in 7-3 as well, but I think the fact that Firebrand can't kill Chris is a big factor. Chris's offense is just like it's irrelevant against Firebrand, which you could read. Like, the only time you will ever hit Firebrand with Chris is if the Firebrand player makes a mistake, obviously, and even again the Firebrand has a lot of like leniency with his offense, or if you catch a hyper aggressive Firebrand with like a preemptive button and they dash into like crouch medium or something. It's very difficult to use a grenade, because even if you throw a flame grenade, Firebrand can just Bon Voyage and take Chris off the ground, and away from the grenade as well. I think this is a matchup where you want to fight with your back to the corner. Being mid-screen makes it worse, because Firebrand's movement, he can easily just kind of get over the top of Chris and get to the other side. Like, the whole thing you want to do when you're playing Chris is be conscious of where you're putting grenades and position yourself appropriately based on the matchup as well. Firebrand ignores that rule, because he can dash up to you and then just, I think is it medium on the ground that goes up forward and just get over the top of you, and then because he recovers so quickly, he can come down with a button and attack you from outside the grenade's range. Similar to Thor with Mighty Spark as well, Firebrand can put out fireballs at such a rate that Chris cannot do anything. Like, low air fireballs shut down Chris completely. You don't even have space to go prone. And even if you do go prone, you're not doing anything, because Firebrand's not on the ground long enough for you to be able to shoot and interrupt him. Wait, no, hold on. This should go up here. This is bad. Again, Chris's advantage of the matchup, if he hits Firebrand, he'll kill Firebrand. Which I think is you can say for every matchup, because that's the kind of idea. But yeah, exactly. Firebrand has many tools to actually just ignore flame grenade, or grenades in general. The amount of times I've put down a landmine to anti-air an air button, but then Firebrand's jump S hits so far below him, the landmine explodes and doesn't hit Firebrand, and then you just get a full combo. I think Chris is also very vulnerable to Firebrand's resets, because one of the main ways to dodge Firebrand's resets is to jump or super jump air dash away. Chris can't do that, and if he jumps, he's so vulnerable on the way down. Yeah, but it's whenever I play against Doppelghost Firebrand and I hit it, I feel like it's just because it's just because Doppel's done something or is getting really aggressive and he dashes into something. But it usually feels like if I got Chris alone versus Firebrand alone, I usually lose. But yeah, I think the fact that Firebrand genuinely has to hit Chris 3, sometimes 4 times, even with assists, is the downfall. But usually what happens in this matchup, if Firebrand's in for whatever reason, say Doppelghost has cycled Firebrand at a point, it's just snap out Chris. There's no point spending a million resources to kill this character with Firebrand. But I think this is like... Yeah, exactly. You have to get so many correct reads against Firebrand. But then it's kind of like the Hawkeye Doom matchup where the Hawkeye player has to be right many times, but the Doom has to be right once. But it's kind of the opposite way around, where Firebrand can do a lot of very low commitment options and just pester Chris. I think that's the other thing too, is Firebrand's fireballs do 100k damage, which is insane. So they do above average chip damage. And Chris can take a lot of that chip, which is to his advantage. Firebrand can't really chip out Chris. Unless Chris is extremely low on health, at which point you're going to lose anyway. But yeah, I think this is 4-6, or for Firebrand 6-4, bordering onto 7-3, based on how bad that is. But that's my general I think it's like on an average Chris player versus an average Firebrand player, Firebrand's favour 4 out of 6 times. 6 out of 4 times, I should say. Who else? Alright, let's go through... we'll go through Demon Phoenix's team, because it's one of the most relevant as well. I think Morrigan is bad, but I don't think it's the worst. I think this is a very assist-oriented matchup, where what a lot of people focus on... I'm tempted to put this up here. What a lot of people focus on with Morrigan is Morrigan's Fireball game. Because it's the best Fireball game in the game by long shot. But Chris has a pretty decent time dealing with it as well. He can't stall out Astral because he can't float in the air for ages. But Chris has good enough ground mobility and can hit a very broad area in front of him with like a shotgun, for example, or going prone, to make Morrigan have to reposition to shoot fireballs. You can manipulate that as well, but you will be blocking a lot of fireballs. When Morrigan's not in Astral, you can come down with a machine gun and it will destroy both fireballs coming at you. But I think the problem Chris has is when Morrigan rushes down. So this is the big thing with Chris, is Chris has a very hard time getting people off him. For an easy peasy. This is a well refined matchup chart as well. I'm not content. I'm not going to put a thumbnail clickbait or whatever. I'm tempted to make this like I hate like 6.5 matchups as well, but I feel like Morrigan's kind of in there. It's not about the hustle for the matchup chart, it's about the knowledge. It's about practice. Anyway, yeah, Morrigan has a very good high-low game. Chris can't, like, his buttons and moves are too slow to be able to push block Morrigan and do something. The amount of times you like block an air button, you do a delayed push block so she moves back further, and then you try and put down a landmine to anti-air when you jump in, but she can just do air-dash-S before the landmine comes out and just hits Chris. Again, the advantage is Morrigan can't really damage Chris, but then if we take this into consideration, then she's got TACs, and then it's much more of a problem as well. But if Morrigan has a TAC to kill Chris, your remaining two characters also have a lot more health. Yeah, evasion is key, but Chris doesn't have great evasion. He has a good backdash, and that's it. But it's one of those things where you stay grounded when she's in Astral. When she's not in Astral and throwing fireballs, then you jump a lot more. But the key focus is you have to use your assist to protect Chris to snipe their assists. If we take the most common matchup you would expect with these two characters, which is Morrigan with missiles, Chris vs Jam Session. Chris with Jam Session does significantly better against Morrigan than probably most characters do. Yes, that is a huge part of the matchup. However, you will get to the point where, like, because DP and I have played against each other so much, his Doom assist calls against Chris are fantastic, because he'll only ever call Doom once I'm already in block stun. Like, he won't just call Doom, like mash A1 and then throw fireballs, because he knows he's going to get magnumed. There's times where when Morrigan's in Astral and they try and use that time to approach, they leave a gap and then you can get a magnum. And then, yeah, that's honestly a big thing. You don't have to call Doom. But you can when you're smart about it. Yeah, just wait till they're blocked on, wait till they're locked down. Another thing DP would do is, in flight, get over the top of me, call Doom, and then get back to the other side. Or just like switch sides so Chris can't interact with Doom properly. Chris fortunately has his launcher that it hits 90 degrees above him, going from down to up. How do you feel Chris does against the battery? Horribly. He's one of the worst characters, I think, to deal with it. Because the good Morrigan teams, or just like Battery Runaway, will all have characters that have air mobility. And what happens is they will, because you feel so like pressured to have to rush them down or stop them, you will inevitably super jump towards them, and Magneto will either just throw you by plinking, or you super jump and then they air dash down and then get underneath you again, and you've just super jumped into the corner and killed yourself. The game plan I take when I approach that is I generally just kind of accept they're going to have more meat than me at all times, especially Morrogen teams. Like there's a extremely high chance you're going to have to play against Dark Phoenix, and that's just how it is. But yeah, I think taking that into consideration as well with Morrigan's support, I think Chris does much worse as well. So I'm inclined to stick this in God Awful as far as the matchup goes as well. The other annoying thing is Morrigan's one of the characters where Chris has to adjust his combo slightly because she's so small. Even simple stuff like the launcher, S knockdown, falling magnum, core drones plus flamethrower. You have to do a very slight delay on your flamethrower, otherwise Morrigan will fall out in between the last hit of flamethrower and the first hit of drones. And there are some other combos that just don't work on her. Because like there's a drones extension I do as well. If I had footage ready to show, I'd show it here. But it's whatever. But yeah, I think Morrigan's rushdown destroys Chris. I think Morrigan's keep away makes Chris have to play very differently. It's extremely mobility based. You have to have like very crispy plinks with Chris. My edit there. But otherwise, I think this is matchup bad. No. Next in the Zero Doom or Morrigan Doom Virgil is Doom. This is another problem matchup that's very much defined by the assists. Part of the reason why I put it in 6-4 is Doom has to be very careful about using Plasma Beam. Doom up playing. Oh yeah, sorry. Excuse me. Doom has to be very careful about using Plasma Beam because if he uses medium or heavy Plasma Beam and Chris predicts it, he will get magnums. If Doom does a... Yeah, that's what I was saying. It's extremely... with this matchup, it's extreme that as well as Chris has Jam Session, and Chris should have Jam Session. And I think it's the same thing for Doom. Jam Session's very good at making Photon Shot mostly irrelevant. I think the fact that Doom can't really poke a really effective angle when he's at super jump height against Chris, that is fine, because Chris, like if Doom's just doing Photon Shot over and over again, you can throw incendiary grenades and just make a lot of the gunshots, a lot of the Photon Shots irrelevant. Another thing you can do, what a lot of Dooms like to do is super jump, Photon Shot, fly, shot, and then land, and then do Plasma Beam. If you chicken block the last Photon Shot, you can Magnum. You can chicken block Photon Shot, Magnum, and hit Light Plasma Beam, and then you get 430k on Doom, or more if you've got a good Chris team. It's also, especially when Doom's doing it mid-screen, and you have opportunities to dash underneath him and cross up his inputs, make him foot dive into a flame grenade, for example. The other thing is, versus really aggressive Dooms, Doom has bug on for cross, don't have projectile resistance from Chris blind spots. I don't think Bargun's that relevant in the matchup. I think what it's good at doing is catching when Chris likes to jump up back gunshot plus assist. But even then, if you hit Chris with Buttergun, Dante will usually hit Doom, and then it's fine. But realistically, Chris should just kind of stand. This is another matchup where you want to fight with your back to the corner, so you don't get crossed up. But I think the other thing too is if Doom does Buttergun on a read and Chris doesn't jump, you get magnums. Especially if someone likes to do Buttergun plus assists, because again, Doom can't cancel Buttergun into anything. After this ground shotgun used against Sponge. So I used to like shotgun against Doom a lot, but now I don't. I think the problem is shotgun can hit badly. So if you catch Doom when he's in the air and he gets hit by like one of the bullets, really early on, he can tech forward and put you in pressure even though you just hit him with a shotgun. What I like doing against Doom that like to try dash is stand heavy, because stand heavy is that big horizontal kick, and what I learned from playing against Demon Phoenix when he was playing Nova primarily is it has a deceptively huge horizontal hitbox, especially at the beginning, and it's very good at anti-airing, like normal jump height approaches, so try dashes, box dashes, for example. Shotgun's I think it's the hardest, probably the second hardest of Chris's tools to use properly. It's very matchup specific in terms of when it's good, but it's because you have to use it preemptively because of how slow it is. It's like 22 or something frame startup. Not too dissimilar from Magnum, and it covers a very specific angle. So if behind what? You mean Jumpman? Jumpman plays Chris, Wesker, Amaterasu. Although he's playing Chris a lot less recently. But it's how I use shotgun is this is a big thing with like Chris neutral is you can blow up your own grenades. The hardest tool is medium grenade in neutral. So the one that just explodes and then does nothing. Because it's like very committal for a very risky reward. Because if it explodes and then you get nothing from it, you lose that opportunity cost. Whereas if you do landmine, you put something there and you can move away from it, or incendiary grenade leaves the flame pool. All the guns do chip damage. I think medium grenade is probably actually his best anti-air option besides air throws, because it comes out quicker than the other two, does 150k on explosion, and you get a full combo from it. The problem is it's only in like an effective range in front of Chris for a very short period of time, so it's very risky because if you do it too early you just die. And the fact that if an assist hits it, then it just... a projectile hits it, then it explodes and does nothing. It's good for, like, neutralizing projectiles in that regards. But, again, opportunity cost, you'd probably rather do a Magnum or a gun rather than a medium grenades. But yeah, so in regards to shotgun, yeah, it's chip damage is one of the key things. It does, like, 60k chip if someone blocks the whole thing, which is insane. It's really good at making people block on incoming when you don't have good timing. If you're like far from the corner so you can't get a meaty and grenades aren't effective, or it's like an air dasher, shotgun plus jam session is really good at catching an air dash and then converting from jam session. But I think it's good against Doom when he's in the corner. I hope this isn't going to be a 4-hour video. We're only 5th characters in. So yeah, it's good against Doom when he's in the corner. I don't like it as much when he's mid-screen. The tools I like most against Doom are Landmine, because again he has to tri-dash into Chris offensively, and both foot dives will get hit by Landmine. I think Heavy Grenade is Chris's best tool in like every matchup, so it's not worth mentioning in that regard. But it's very good that even if Chris gets hit by a foot dive and it trades with Incendiary, Doom still doesn't get a conversion, unlike another character we'll get to later on. But I think the problem is Doom can just occupy so much of a space that Chris can't do anything in, and I think the biggest thing for the matchup is Doom can kill Chris. If Doom gets a clean enough hit, like on incoming, and has enough bar, he can level 3 and kill Chris, or again he can snap and get good offense against his assists. I just think it's very much a factor. But otherwise I don't think it's the end of the worlds. Lastly is Virgil. I also used to think this was like a 3-7 matchup. I don't think so much anymore. One of the really annoying things Virgil does is his swords negate the flame carpet. So this is actually one of the matchups where they're not super effective, but they're still one of the best tools. This will be a common thing with all teleporters, is any gun read that's wrong, Virgil will teleport on and kill you for it, especially machine gun. But I think one of the big factors is Chris. Like, Virgil's very good at whittling down characters, but because Chris has so much health, I think it makes it more likely for Chris to survive. But I think the number one problem Chris has is it's very difficult for him to escape round trip pressure. When you're playing against a Virgil that knows how to throw round trip, they will throw it from outside of crouch medium range, which usually means that you can then do a jump back gunshot, but if you're in the corner you can't do jump back gunshot because then you just get hit by the round trip, or if it whiffs you just die. And it just makes it a hell of a matchup, and it's more about like knowing, as long as you have an assist still, is trying to call an assist to interrupt the round trip pressure. But Chris does a very good job at deleting round trip and neutral, because any projectile interacting with round trip negates it, and a bullet will hit round trip and go from there. It's also harder to fight with your back to the corner because Virgil can teleport into the corner as well. Um, I think one of the things that works in Chris' favor is if Chris does a Magnum at the same time as a Judgment Cut, Chris will get hit by one hit of Judgment Cut, hit Virgil with Magnum and still get a combo or a Magnum sequence, which I think is pretty big to the matchup. Except when Virgil's in Devil Trigger, but then Devil Trigger Virgil's like the best character in the game. One of the best anyway. But otherwise, I think it's very straightforward. Virgil having 5-frame buttons and Chris having 6-frame buttons is a big problem. So it's harder for Chris to whiff punish Virgil anyway. But this is almost entirely assist dependent. I think when it's one-on-one, it's absolutely like this. I think with Chris having good assists and Virgil being by himself, I actually don't think it's that bad. I think Virgil, like Anchor Virgil with low X factor or no X factor, and Chris versus assist is more here. But I think on average with normal assists like Doom, Virgil with Plasma Beam, Virgil with missiles versus Chris with Jam Session, I think it's 6-4 Virgil. I think it could be worse, but it isn't. Cool. Whose team should we do next? Oh, let's do Zero because Mars was in chat. I think Zero is an absolute garbage, horrible, awful, disgusting matchup for Chris. I don't even know if I need to really explain this. It's all the reasons why Zero is good are the reasons why Chris has trouble with the matchup. You can't interrupt any of his strings. You can't challenge him in the air. You have to do everything on a reads. Like Magnum goes over the top of Buster if you shoot in neutral, which clips Zero in the head, but you don't get a combo because Zero's too small. But so then if you super jump and try and get the combo, then you're vulnerable because Zero just dashes underneath you. It's almost entirely read based, because if you try and do anything in the air, Zero just command dashes underneath you. If you try and do something on the ground, Zero can approach you from the air. Zero can actually punish Magnum in neutral by doing normal jump, medium command dash forward, and let go of Buster. I think the only kind of solace Chris has is you need an assist that has a reasonable amount of durability, and Flamethrower beats Buster. I think this is one of the big things with Chris that I don't see any other Chris players do, is use Flamethrower as an anti-projectile option, because it will absorb Plasma Beam plus Buster plus Fireball, and then you can Magnum and punish them. But you're not going to be able to do that every single time. Any remotely decent Zero player will know that, okay, if I see Flamethrower, I'm just going to jump over him. Thank you for clarifying, Remy. I think this match was worse than Morrigan. I'll try and roughly order these in here. Like for the good and these ones even, doesn't really matter. But yeah, I think this is atrocious for Chris, and every time I hit Zero with Chris, it feels like the stars are aligned. I also think Magneto is up here. There's absolutely nothing Chris can do against a lame Magneto. We have Remy, normal player, as he likes to call himself. Remy in the chat, but a Magneto that's just super jumping and doing magnetic blasts and doing reactionary disruptors is impossible to beat. I talked about earlier on with the Thor matchup too, but this Magneto doing disruptor is punishable by Magnum, so you can either super jump in between it and gunshot Magnum, or just regular Magnum in between them. But Magnetos will probably do that on autopilot, then they get hit by it, and then they never do it again, and then you just lose. You can't really stop Magneto's offense. Your whole game plan generally is throw a fire grenade, stand in the fire grenade, and hope for the best. But then Magneto can... something I also don't see many Magnetos do is you can just move Chris out of the flame carpet with gravitation, and it's surprisingly effective because you can cover the gravitation with Plasma Beam, and there's nothing Chris can do to stop that. Because Chris... assuming, again, Magneto Plasma Beam, most common pairing, versus Chris Jam, you can stop Plasma Beam with Flamethrower, but then if you're doing Flamethrower and nothing else, Magneto gets free reign to move around without contest. Most of the time when you hit Magneto, it's Magnuming overly aggressive disruptor chains, and yeah, is putting down 100,000 grenades, and just hoping that they run into it. Like, you not even hoping. It's you will lose if you're just throwing grenades. You have to throw grenades as an anti-air, because you need to make it trade with magnetic blast. You need to make it trade with tri-jump lights. That's where landmine's really good. If you think he's gonna come in with mag blast, flame grenades. If you think he's gonna come in with normals, you want to do landmine. Because fortunately, landmine's blast radius, it's like a hit continent. It's big enough to hit Magneto as he dashes in, and most of the time you get a combo. But yeah, that's a big thing too. If you jump against Magneto, he will throw you. You are dead weight when you leave the ground with Chris against the Magneto. But this will also be the common thing with all the 7-3 matchups, or 3-7 matchups. Sorry, is you just have to make read after read after read. This is also a big problem, and I think it's why I might put Magneto above Morrigan, is if Magneto hits Chris, he can kill Chris. He can build enough bar to level 3, or you can build enough bar to like do whatever with DHC from Magneto to Doom to whatever else, or tag to Doom. And it becomes very much a problem because with some other characters like Firebrand and Morrigan as well, you can kind of expect that you'll get a second chance, but with these two in particular, you don't. If you get hit by these two with Chris, you will lose Chris. At which point, the best thing he does is build 2 bars by dying. What else is there? We'll get MODOK up here as well. MODOK kills Chris by tagging to Doom. So you build 2 bars of a clean hit with Chris, of a clean hit with Magneto, sorry, and then do a combo into level 3, or you can tag it into Doom and do Doom's level 3 with like relatively optimized combos. But playing against, if I'm playing against Sheep and Sheep can do a tri-dash light, not throws or plasma hits. No, but then TAC is a thing as well. But yeah, or snap out. But Chris still does get another life. But if there's a clean enough hit, Magneto will kill Chris. That's why I'm saying TACs or whatever. I'm saying like off actual just killing Chris, because TACs are not guaranteed death because you can counter them. Well, snap out means Chris gets another chance, but actually just killing Chris. Because Chris is in matchup sense one of the characters you want to snap out anyway, because it's not worth spending, or not always worth spending 2 or 3 bars to kill him unless Chris is like a problem matchup for the player rather than the matchup. Because he's also an awful anchor, one of the worst in the game. Yeah, I think MODOK is another 7-3. It might actually be kind of below Morrigan. The reason why I think that is Barry's irrelevant. If anytime MODOK does Barry, you can do grenade launcher, and it'll punish it. And even if missiles come down, because he's frozen, you get a Magnum combo afterwards as well. Barry's not the problem. The problem is just him floating about, and there's really nothing you can do about it. What I have learned that makes this matchup much more effective, again, is how good Flamethrower is against MODOK. It's a really good normal jump height anti-air, because MODOK attacks from the air but quite low to the ground. It will eat up the durability of a Sonic Blaster and let you Magnum and punish it, especially if missiles have been called too. Again, assuming MODOK has missiles. Even if it's something like drones. But the main problem is Chris can't stop MODOK getting in from above him and starting his offense there. Because he can attack from above the range of grenades with Jump S. We won't be able to kill Chris if he starts to combo with the Jump S as well, but Chris also has no option to escape the unblockables or the hard to blockable / unblockables besides just block them. Because he has no air options. So he just kind of falls helplessly into them, or you mash an assist, hope the assist gets hit by the goop, and then you block the overhead and go from there as well. But it's very tough otherwise, but see some good matchups. Well, this is the thing, Chris just loses against most of the good characters. That's why he's not that great. But I'm just going over the characters I played against recently. Good characters are good so far, yeah. Yeah, simply, Chris can't escape the resets. Alright, let's give you one as well. I think this one goes down here. In theory, Chris should never lose to Hagar. It's usually when people lose to Hagar, you're losing against a player rather than the that as well. These aren't spicy takes here. This is just I'm talking about good matchups. How many people in chat do you think are here just to dodge you? Everyone. Everyone's here to dodge you, Remy. They join the chat explicitly to dodge you. But yeah, Hagar is the only character that can trade with the flame grenades and still get a combo afterwards. If you hit pipe deep enough as well, you get joggled for so long. Hagar gets hit by the explosion, all 5 hits of flame carpet, neutral text, and still gets crouch heavy. And I've lost games off that because of that as well. That's probably the only thing Hagar really. Oh, that and the fact that Chris can't escape the proper reset. But again, Chris can kill Hagar. Hagar has a very tough time dealing with flamethrower. This is a matchup where shotgun's extremely good. You throw flame grenade, shotgun, anti-airs Hagar from his normal jump height, pushes him back into the flame carpet. Flame grenade just exploded, and then you throw another flame grenade, rinse, repeat, and there's nothing you can do about it. I think the only... So, the 3 bad things, trading with flame grenade, trading with pipe rod, and Hagar still gets a combo, can't escape the crouch medium, heavy hoodle and watch a reset, and Chris has no options to duck under lariat. Even crouch light, if Hagar does lariat, will hit Chris. He can't low profile it. Unless you go prone, obviously, but then what are you doing? But otherwise, this is a very straightforward and easy matchup for Chris as well. Same thing with Hulk. It's exactly the same reasoning with Hulk. I mean, those are if Hagar gets the hit, but in neutral, Hagar just doesn't break through flame grenades, landmines, and flamethrower, and shotgun. And even if it's like 1 versus 1, Chris gets so much tip damage on Hagar before he hits Hagar that he will be able to kill him for his 1 or 2 bar combos. Hagar needs very specific assists to do well in the matchup. What matchups do you spice against Chris and KBR? I don't think that's a spice. I think everyone knows Chris beats KBR. Again, it's a very much Chris damage. Chris should never be in the air against Hagar. You stay grounded. If he super jumps, you get underneath him. Like it's kind of the classic. I mean, it's how everyone should play the matchup. If you're near the corner and Hagar super jumps, you get underneath him and put him back in the corner. But exact same thing with Hulk too. I think the dangerous thing with Hulk is if he's playing. They do look like conjoined tins. If Hulk is playing extremely cautiously, they will just be looking to punish you punishing the assists, in which case they will gamma charge through magnums or landmines. But if once you get 1 flame grenade down, that matchup is over. He can't stop the flame grenade chain where you do a flame grenades, shoot the grenades, put him in block stun somehow, like just jump at him, do a block string into a flame grenades, then because he's still on block stun from the first grenades. Green erase? Is that meant to be a pun on green ace? Oh, you're just saying is green erase? Probably is. Green giant. Sweet corn man. And then Chris can kill Hulk from 1 hit as well, which is a big thing. Where is he? Sweet corn man is the slur. Damn, you caught me. I've been caught live on stream. I'm going to upload this with the slur in there as well. Actually, I'll do one that some people might think is a spicy take as well. I think Chris Nova is even. I think this is very much a player-based matchup. Esler. That's a classic. Because if you ask every Chris player, they'll say it's a Nova favoured matchup. But I think Nova has to respect the grenades so much, or expend all of their resources to ignore or to get past them as well. Because if you hit something Nova has, which is the best level 1 non-install in the game, is Human Rocket Super, which if Chris throws the grenades, Nova can blast through it, hit Chris, but then he's not killing Chris. He has to have 2 bars in order to, like, you have to have a very optimized Nova team in order for it to be threatening, or spend X Factor. And then if Nova spends X Factor earlier, you've got your own 2 characters with X Factor left as well. And Nova teams, besides Nova Spencer Doom, don't really... it's more costly for them to spend X Factor early. But because Nova has such a linear approach, the landmines are so much more, or the grenades are so much more effective. It's very much a matchup of, like, oh man, what's the childhood game? Well, it's not even, it's kind of like the floor is lava, but the opposite. You want to stand everywhere where there is fire. The floor is normal. But if you're standing inside of flame grenades, Nova can't do anything. He can't hit you with crouch medium because you'll get hit by a flame carpet, and then if it trades, then you get the combo. Nova's low enough health that Chris, even off a really scaled hit, Chris can kill Nova for 2 bars if you do a good combo, and sometimes 3, but then Chris builds enough bar to kill Nova from every single hit. Especially at air throws as well. There's a technique to an air throw, so it's less of like Chris can air throw Nova. It's more like if you're familiar enough with the matchup, you can manipulate Nova to get the air throw and not get thrown in return. The problem is when Chris is in the corner, because the main way to escape Nova's offense, because Nova has a very kind of box offense where if this is the stage corner here and you're these 2 icons, he's attacking this kind of area there. So being able to attack or jump out this way is really effective. Chris can't do that because if you super jump out the corner, you're just a sitting duck and you will get thrown or get mixed up as you land. But Nova has to take to the sky against Chris. Like, there's no way he's approaching Chris on the ground because he's going to have to deal with forward medium gunshots. He can't get through shotgun. He can't get through the flame grenades. Can't get through landmine. One of the saving graces for Nova is because Nova tucks his body in so much when he does jump heavy, he can hit Chris with the jump heavy from so high up that the landmine explosion doesn't touch Nova. Again, it's very much a matchup specific thing. If you attack from the normal height Nova would attack from, you will get hit by the jump heavy as well. Oh, the landmine, sorry. And yeah, that's the thing. Chris makes javelin and shield irrelevant. If you do either of those things, 2 things, you will get magnumed on reaction. And I've killed Ezra, Demon Phoenix's, like, every Nova for doing of shields, because when you, like, again, the really good teams, good Chris teams, sorry, will be able to convert magnums for full screen, and Chris's 1 bar magnum combos do 960k, and Nova is easily dead for that too. So it forces a very linear style from Nova, which Chris then takes advantage of, and it works in his favor as well. Again, the problem being when he's locked down in the corner. But I think this is extremely assist dependent, where Nova needs a quick assist on the ground in order to deal with it well. I think another kind of, that's not even like a subtle assist, but like Mystic Ray, yeah, Zero Mag Spencer is the true counter pick. But Mystic Ray is very good because Nova can make it so Shuma goes off screen, and then Chris can't Magnum Shuma. But then you should never be doing Magnum without an assist call in front of it, because as Demon Fix very much knows, you can very easily get a bad Magnum, and Nova will just sail over the top of you as you whiff a Magnum and just clip you in the head with a jump heavy, and then body you. But I think the fact that Chris can dictate the way Nova has to play, and make him attack from certain angles, even if they are good angles for Nova, I think makes it more of an even matchup as well. Because Nova can't do enough damage against Chris. Chris easily kills Nova. Chris limits a lot of Nova's options. But I think this is if we're the Spencer matchup. I think the Spencer matchup is awful for Chris. I think it's one of his worst. I'm genuinely tempted to put it in 7-3, for the exact reason, and he's done this sometimes. If Spencer just does jump, full normal jump, medium grapple, Chris cannot do anything about it because he jumps above a Magnum. So you can't clip his toes in Magnum. If you throw grenades or do any other gun, you get hit by the grapple. And that's it. The reason why I feel like I hit Spencer's a lot is because they dash in really aggressively. And you can preemptive button, you can grenades and so on, and there's you just can't get through it. But if you throw an uncovered grenade, you do an uncovered gun, and he ducks Magnum or something, you get punished by grapple, and that's it. Grapple dictates that matchup massively, and it makes grenades almost irrelevant. And there's also the big factor that Spencer has resets on Chris that Chris can't escape, and Spencer can kill Chris, which is another big thing, because Spencer will usually have taken some chip damage by the time he hits Chris, and with even one decent assist, you can kill Chris for 2 or 3 bars as well. Back to as well. Yeah. I think, yeah, if you... Once you get a second bar and you've got a good enough character behind Spencer to DHC from, you just kind of exist at mid-screen. So in range where you can jump things on reaction and grapple them, or Bionic Arm if he calls an assist, and there's really nothing Chris can do to stop that. But the thing is, a lot of people play really weird Spencer teams, so it's normally not that big of a deal. Or again, the less good Spencers will just grapple in aimlessly and they get thrown every single time for it. But if you have a very patient Spencer and you just do jump, medium, grapple, you will usually beat Chris. I'm firing shots at Sean specifically. I'm going to name and shame. But yeah, I think this is kind of like at the bottom of 7-3. Actually, no, I almost think the Spencer match was worse than MODOK. That too as well, if they don't really understand the Chris matchup. But yeah, Spencer just has faster buttons than Chris. He has very similar range buttons. Spencer stand heavy goes about as far as Chris's stand heavy. It goes over crouch medium too, which is a really annoying thing. And Chris can't... Oh, that's the other thing that really works in Spencer's favour. If Chris does super jump guns, Spencer's ground movement is so good, he just flies underneath Chris and makes the guns irrelevant. And you die for super jumping as well. I feel like every time I get an accidental super jump versus a Spencer player, I just die inside, and then I die in the game. But I think this matchup is horrible for Chris, and I almost think it's worse than MODOK to deal with. Yeah, the fucking full-on barrel roll. Alright, who else we got? Let's do Iron Man. Iron Man is effectively the same as Doom. Wesker, I think Wesker is atrocious because we'll come back to Iron Man. Wesker is like up here. It's worse than Doom for Chris, because Doom's air plasma beams don't do that much chip damage, and if he does the slower plasma beams, Chris can move around them as well. Chris cannot do anything about super jump gunshot Wesker. This matchup is super jump central, because what you would do if Wesker super jump gunshots is you have to super jump with them, hope they do gunshot and then heavy teleport to the ground, and then punish the teleport recovery. What Wesker can do is super jump gunshot medium teleport, and there's nothing you can do because he recovers in the air, and that's it. You get in closer to him, but then you can't get, because Chris's forward dash isn't very good, he can't get close to Wesker enough to threaten him, and then Wesker comes down with a button, he comes down with a gunshot. Wesker's ground mobility ignores a lot of things. I think one of the really annoying things about the matchup too is if Wesker does his command dash / teleport through a landmine, it triggers the landmine but doesn't damage Wesker. So his physical hitbox or like skeleton goes through the landmine, which triggers it, but he's invincible. So he doesn't reappear, he actually travels across the ground. So the landmine is much less effective against Wesker. Hey, Robo. Again, the main advantage for Chris in this matchup is Wesker can't kill Chris. Like, even a clean hit into a level 3 usually doesn't kill, but Wesker can get so much guaranteed chip on Chris that by the time he gets a clean hit on Chris, he will usually be able to kill him with 1 or 2 bars. Usually 2 bars. But Wesker's one of those characters that he can kind of sacrifice his assist to bait a Magnum and then just shoot the Magnum. And then when you get hit by, especially when you get hit by a bullet, you don't have enough time to do a grenade. But usually the this is a really stupid thing about the matchup, is what you have to do is throw a grenade to try and interrupt the bullet coming down towards Chris and then move forward. Yeah, Chris's main advantage of range with crouch medium, Wesker's crouch medium has the same range as Chris's does, so they can whiff punish each other quite effectively. That's about it. The special counter The counters aren't particularly useful against Chris, because from the range where you would be able to react to and do a counter, you're too far for the counter to hit, and if you're too close, you can actually just dash under. Because Wesker's low profile dash, you can just dash under a Magnum. Yeah, you have to block. Yeah, simply block bullets with the grenade. But yeah, Wesker makes landmine irrelevant. Makes Chris have to play a very specific way. Gets a lot of guaranteed chip. But if he wants to be offensive, because he has to approach very directly, Chris can interrupt challenge with his own buttons, but then Wesker can bait that challenge with his own buttons, and it's very much like a very read-based matchup, but very much works in Wesker's favor. I love RE5 as well. How are we doing with this? I'm thinking, the way I'm looking at it is from both a 1v1 perspective and Chris with Jam Session versus that character with their best assists as well. So it's just kind of trying to consider both with and without assists, too. But yeah, I think Wesker's very tough for Chris. Actually, let's do another one. I think this matchup is also pretty free. There's probably more here. Yeah, I've very much come around to appreciate mercenaries. Like, I think about it every now and again as well. But I think it's the type of thing I'd only really enjoy if I was playing it with someone else who's good at it. Or wanted to get good at it as well. But by myself, I'm not that super into it. I think the only reason this isn't a 7-3 matchup is Gustav Fire. It's very... Like, Gustav Fire plus assists is very good at stopping Magnums, and you can pretty reasonably react to Magnum because it's got 22 frame startup, and then Gustav. It's Gustav, isn't it? Not Gustav. Oh, Gustav. Does it have like a pronunciation? Gustavu. Yeah, whatever. Anyway, so yeah, Gustav. Yeah, so Gustav Fire. It's pretty against that. I think one of the really interesting thing about this matchup, and it's similar to the Thor matchup as well, is wait, what was the? Oh. It shot hot stuff in your face and there was nothing you can do about it. Yeah, I think one of the big things for Chris actually is Chris doesn't have to adjust his combos on Tron. If anything, his combos are easier on Tron because there's no like spacing specific stuff as well. But that also makes it interesting. But the thing I was going to say before too is in terms of because Tron has two moves that nullify projectiles. So if you throw a grenade at her and she jump S or jump heavy to the grenade, it will destroy the grenade, but the flame carpet still appears. So there's no explosion, but the flame pool still appears, which means that she will just sail helplessly into the flame carpet, and you get a conversion from that too. I think she also has a lot of trouble with flamethrower. Gustav. I'm not sure why he uses it, because I think most Tron players are boulder players now, because it's a 1 medium durability projectile, which is also decent to use against Chris. Oh, it's 10 low, sorry, not 1 medium. Which is also kind of a decent option against Chris, because it will trade with... Not trade, but it will nullify Magnum. But otherwise, there's not really anything Tron can do against Chris. Like in neutral, this is the matchup where Tron has to make loads of reads in order to get a single hit on Chris. And even her pressure isn't that good against him, because she's very push blockable. And as a result, that also makes her very open to air throws too. Oh, it didn't hurl your spawn back. Yeah. But I think the thing that makes me not have this as a 7-3 is that because Tron is one of those characters that you lose loads of your health to get in and get a single hit. By the time she gets a hit, she usually has enough meat to be able to kill Chris, because Tron is an extremely high damage character because she's a very meter dump character as well. She can build a lot of bar from Chris because characters don't die early enough as well. Trish next. I think Trish is... Where's Trish on here? Down here. I think Trish is a bad 6-4. It's the most straightforward way of looking at this is Trish is just worse Morrigan. Is she can put a lot of stuff on the screen, but the stuff that she puts on the screen is slow, doesn't do much chip, and is very vulnerable to getting assist called against her. I think, yeah, the big thing is her damage is atrocious. Because what Trish wants to do is spend bar on maximum voltage to hit Chris in the assists. But then if you do that, you get so much... You get nothing from it, basically. She's angles Chris... Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, she's angles Chris can't hit, but then she also can't hit Chris from those angles. So it's like, it's almost like worse Doom in that regard. Because Doom can like attack a very broad area with low chip damage or a single area with a lot of chip damage. But Trish only has that down forward angle, which loses to Chris just normal jumping. Also Chris dashing underneath her. The dive kick is a problem. But the reason why dive kick isn't always a problem is landmines. Is she has to respect landmines in her approach because she approaches either with a box dash like super jump, instant air dash S, instant air dash H, tri dash light or dive kick. And all of those options will lose to a landmine. Or a grenade as well. But if she also can't do anything on the ground, because if she does, how does Storm interact with this versus? It does nothing. They don't negate them. Her sword almost don't interact with projectiles. But if she does low voltage on the ground, she will get hit by a Magnum, and Chris will get hit by the low voltage, and then he gets a combo from it as well. But her being the thing you want to do with Trish is again the same thing you want to do with Doom. Is you want to bear in mind how long they've been in the air for and catch them as they come down. Like force them to do something. This is a matchup I'm absolutely fine to fight with my back to the corner. Yeah, Trish is on the cusp of being extremely good. But they like broke all of her joints and then gave those joints to Magneto. He's like a hyper mobile old man. But otherwise, I don't think this is terrible. I think this is a very stall-based matchup. I'm almost tempted. This is definitely. Hold on, I think Virgil's worse than Doom. I think Trisha's worse than all these. So Jesus Christ, her dive kick special cancelable as well. So imagine Magneto doing dive kick, mag blast. There's just nothing you can do to stop it. But yeah, like Chris doesn't ever have to worry about the traps because he doesn't move towards Trish enough. It makes grounded. You know what? I'm almost tempted to put this in 5-5. Just because she doesn't do enough against him. Like this, because if we're assuming that Trish has missiles, Chris will have Jam Session, and Jam Session will destroy the missiles as well. Yeah, because I was just really thinking about it, and it's like it's not that scary. The most dangerous point is when Trish is already in Chris's face and she does instant overhead lights into whatever, but she can't combo instant overhead light by herself. She has to use an assist to do it. And then if she only has one assist for the combo, she's definitely not doing enough damage to like really threaten Chris, and she has to snap, or she actually has trouble doing snap combos, I think, as well. But she has to TAC, and that gives Chris enough chances to like tech roll mid-screen and get away from her. But I think, yeah, assisted Chris versus assisted Trish is fine. It's definitely, I don't think it's Chris's favour. I think Trish can stall Chris enough, stall Trish out enough. I think this, what would put this into like 7-3 is like if Trish had Morrigan. If I was playing against like Wall Street, for example, and Trish, and he was just staying top right, top left corner of the screen, mashing Morrigan assist, and there's nothing Chris can do about it, that's a problem. But Trish focused teams I don't think are that bad for Chris. Trish? I did once. Oh, Krish. Crash! Yeah, I don't think it's terrible. I think it's workable. Triss. Alright. What's the matchups I think are even? I don't know if Chris has many even matchups as well. I think Hawkeye's pretty even. Actually, Hawkeye might even be Chris favoured. Because Hawkeye has the problem where all of his arrows... Like, Magnum covers the exact angle that goes over or under all of Hawkeye's arrows, which result in Chris getting a trade combo in his favour. Chris's prone is also really effective against Hawkeye because it will force Hawkeye to use his angled arrows, and Chris will get shot. Yeah, so Magnum skirts over the top of Piercing Bolt, and they don't touch each other. So Chris will take like 100k or whatever from Piercing Bolt, and then Hawkeye takes 150k from Magnum, and you have more than enough time to do dash that as well. Jump back triple arrow. I disagree. I think jump back triple arrow is begging to get Magnum. You never want to leave the grounds against Hawkeye with Chris. It's either you're standing or you're prone. And if Hawkeye does up arrows, that's just begging to get Magnum as well. Chris can take a million gimlets because they just don't do enough. Unless you're doing like gimlet into swords DHC or gimlet into whatever. That's a different story. But I think... Yeah, I'm actually going to put this down here. But I think Hawkeye's offense isn't good enough to... Okay, there we go. That's the other way. But I think Hawkeye's good offense isn't good enough against Chris to really be scary. It's a very much like skill-based offense where you have to be able to open up the Chris player's defense. Again, Hawkeye is not doing enough damage. He doesn't build enough damage and doesn't build enough meter in neutral to really make it effective. Like, he needs to come in with loads of bar. But if it's like a point Hawkeye team, I think it's fine. And he has a much harder time protecting his assists against Chris protecting his assists. It's usually Hawkeye with a beam is probably the most dangerous because beam like clears up jam session. But then that's just begging to get... That's when you want to super jump on Hawkeye and just like gunshot Magnum. But I think, yeah, I don't think Hawkeye can do enough to Chris because Chris takes a million bars of chip. Trades always work in Chris's favour, and Gimlet's not that big of a deal to deal with. I guess this is probably a spicy take. This is like even barely 6-4, I think, for Chris. Also, Chris can kill Hawkeye from any hit, which is a big factor too. Do Iron Fist? DPR is a... Yeah, they're fantastic against Super Jump and Chris, but again, you never really want to... You either have to preemptively do Super Jump arrows to stop Chris Super Jumping to protect an assist, but then if you do them too early, Chris can just Magnum you on reaction. If you do them too late, then you're going to get interrupted. Clear out the bad characters? Alright. Let's speedrun some of the other bad characters as well. So this is 7-3. This is one of the easiest matchups Chris has. Really nothing Shield can do about anything Chris has on the grounds. Just has to YOLO, command grab, and then go from there. What else is bad for Chris as well? I think Nemesis is also a 7-3. I think this is probably a 7-3 getting on... A 7-3 bordering on the easiest... The hardest 6-4. Because... Chris has like a weird time dealing with jump angled tentacles. Tentacle grab's only threatening because Chris can't escape the reset. That's like the only saving grace. I think because of that I'm going to put... Actually no, that's not fair on Hagar. But yeah, like one touch kill with resets as well. I mean, it's kind of the same thing with Hagar as well, but it's very difficult to get near Chris to hit him. Yeah, I think that's why I have these two here, because the only thing that's the major only thing that's in their favor is the resets on Chris. Hagar, I think Chris can escape Hagar's resets. Depending if the Hagar gets the hit stun like wrong when he does the reset, Chris can mash out of it. Neutral tech light. You can't mash out of Nemesis's, which makes Nemesis is harder to deal with. But Sentinel, Nemesis gets completely destroyed by his shotgun. He gets destroyed by flamethrower. He's big enough that if he jumps and presses, if Nemesis jumps and does nothing, so I don't know if people know this, but when you're jumping and you're not pressing anything, your character's legs don't have a hurt box. It's only your upper body. So if Nemesis empty jumps, he will jump through Magnums. If Nemesis jumps and presses any button, Magnum will catch his normal jump because his normal jump height doesn't go far enough. Nuna's a better option for than Chris commenting. Though. Yeah, that's it. Like Nemesis can at least touch Chris, like before he hits him. TK Rocket's useless. TK Rocket gets Magnums, and you get a trade combo. Oh yeah, Felicia. Oh, actually, speaking of Felicia, so Felicia's a 7-3. This card's garbage. She's down here. She gets annihilated. Chris puts down a landmine, and the matchup is over. There's nothing Felicia can do to deal with landmine, because she wants to do her charge move, Sand Splash. She just gets touched by forward medium. If she super jumps, you know she's going to come down. She's either going to come down with nothing or Delta Kick, and Delta Kick only ever covers one angle and the same distance, or the same 3 distances. So you put down a Flame Grenade, stand in the Flame Grenade, matchup over. Landmine down, matchup over. You easily kill Felicia in any hit. Get your teleport around the mine. I mean, yeah, that does work, because it's like Wesker's where her physical body passes through it, but the animation doesn't. So it will blow up landmine harmlessly. But the problem with that is the recovery. The Kitty teleport has a million bars of recovery. A million years of recovery. Where's the... There we go. Just want to see how much recovery this has. Yeah, like 15 frames of recovery is absolutely going to get punished. And she can't do anything. Well, I'm confident in the files I've got on my system, man. I don't have any dubious things on my hard drive. But yeah, she just can't. Actually, I probably should keep it open because it's relevant. I have it on speed dial. Actually, you want to see something funny? I've got it in the middle of my desktop. Here. So I can just get the Bible up on speed dial. I know for a fact Miles' eyes dotted around my screen to see what all those folders were. He's trying to find evidence.zip. Yeah, this matchup is garbage for Felicia. This screenshot grab. I think the only real benefit Felicia has is that because she's got really good up close buttons, this is a big if Felicia gets in on Chris, she can apply pretty decent pressure against him, which isn't exclusive to Chris because she's also very push blockable, and like chicken guardable. But yeah, it's a garbage. I don't need to talk about it anymore. Bad for Felicia. What else is down there? I think Frank's an interesting one, because in theory he's here. Like level 1, level 2, level 3 Frank is here. He just doesn't get in on Chris. Because despite Frank getting levels, he still gets zoned out very easily because his dashes stay the same and his jump stays the same. If he does any, if he tries to do a bottle, he'll get magnumed. He can try and roll through flame carpets, but then he'll get thrown. Actually, something that makes me put Frank here. Maybe we'll take the average of Frank and I'll put him here. Yeah, I've got opinions on all the matchups as well. I've got opinions on all, obviously. I think one of the big saving graces for Frank is Frank doesn't get juggled by Flame Carpet. He gets hit by one hit of it and he techs out. Which is huge for that matchup, because it means a lot of Chris's setups don't work properly on Frank because he will tech out and recover. Chris having a lot of health is actually advantageous for Frank, because that means the character trying to level up Frank will be able to usually do their full combo on Chris without killing him. And then Frank gets level 4, level 5, and then Frank still gets meter from killing Chris. Or Frank's already level 4 or 5. He's got so much health to work with, to just grind meter from and work from. Frank also has inescapable resets for Chris. He can't dodge the funny face crosser resets. But the main problem is Frank just can't deal with flame grenades properly. He has to YOLO super, or YOLO roll into super, invincible super. This is one of those matchups where drones is probably better than jam session in a lot of cases, because it helps you control the ground and it makes Frank jump, and then Frank's like Hagar, where if Frank jumps you get underneath him and kind of make him stay closer to the corner whenever you can. Not a matchup you usually want to fight from the corner, because again Frank can roll and cross you up if he's leveled up too. I think this kind of goes up here. I'd say it's slightly harder than the Tron. But one of the advantages Frank has is that while his dashes are pretty mediocre, his Plink dash is pretty good. And if you've ever played against Doppel with his Point Frank team, there are times where you'll do something that leaves a gap. He will Plink dash instantly from one side of the screen to the other and launch you. That's like Frank's one of his only saving graces, besides the not being joggled by Flame Carpet thing. But I think it's, on average, I think it's more of a here, because level 4 and 5 Frank can kill Chris. They can poke Chris from outside of range. He's very threatening from a range with like dash jump light, dash jump medium. But he still dies in one hit to Chris, and still gets zoned out really easily as well. Let's see, Ghost Rider. Ghost Rider's an interesting one, and I'm tempted to put Ghost Rider right here. And the reason for that is, it's two reasons. Is Ghost Rider can't hit full screen. He hits about 80-90% of the screen, which means that everything he does as a poke from there, if he whiffs, gets magnumed. Ghost Rider can't jump, because if he jumps, Chris will get underneath him. And Ghost Rider can't, this is just like a Ghost Rider problem rather than a Ghost Rider Chris matchup problem as well. But then the reason why it's a problem for Ghost Rider is if Chris touches Ghost Rider, he will kill him. But the other thing is, Chris going prone is really effective in this matchup, because it makes stand heavy whiff, it makes DP light whiff, it can interrupt DP heavy before it hits. Then Ghost Rider is also very vulnerable at getting jumped against. Ghost Rider can't get in quickly enough to punish Chris super jumping. So if you like super jump in the corner and come down with a gunshot as well. But this is one of those matchups where falling machine gun is really effective, because it will cover a big swath of the screen that Ghost Rider can't get underneath quickly enough. If you're super jumping when Ghost Rider's in your face, you deserve to get hit anyway. That's Chris anyway. But Ghost Rider, he doesn't build enough bar in neutral to be able to kill Chris properly. He can't protect his assists. Shut up, Blood. Thanks for the prompt as well. I feel like the stage hand. Do the thing. I think Ghost Rider's most effective tool in this matchup is back heavy. Oh my god, Double! You've gone wild! Oh, whoops. You deleted all his messages! But Ghost Rider's back heavy is so durable that it will eat Magnum. Also, his DP heavy, the 10 projectiles that come out, because if each individual pivot from the Ghost Rider's like fire chain has 5 durability, which means as it's releasing, it has 50 durability, and nothing is beating that besides a medium durability projectile. But it will beat Magnum and just dissipate it. So it's one of those matchups where it's very standoffish. Because if Ghost Rider tries to jump up and jump S, you can jump at him and interrupt the jump S. If he super jumps, you get underneath him. If he does anything that isn't back heavy or DP heavy, it gets magnumed. You can go prone underneath the other things as well. And Ghost Rider has a harder time protecting the assist against Chris than Chris does against Ghost Rider as well. But I think overall this is a pretty even matchup as a result of that. I think it's, as far as like the even matchups go, I think it's more. I think it's harder against Ghost Rider than Arthur, but these two are definitely up there as well. Someone else said Deadpool. I think Deadpool is an atrocious matchup for Chris. There's several reasons for this. Deadpool's a teleport character. Teleport characters innately do really well against Chris, because he can cover such a huge range of the screen and just make the flame carpet irrelevant. He can, if Chris tries to read any gunshots, Deadpool's light guns will low profile Chris's guns and it will beat machine gun. He can quick work underneath Magnum if you're going for a read with Magnum. Chris can't stop Deadpool just super jumping and gunning with an assist. This is very much dependent on you having Jam Session to absorb durability, but then if you use Jam Session to absorb durability, you run the risk of him getting hit by grenades. And what I recently learned watching Wedge's Deadpool guide is the way to make Deadpool's grenades go full screen is to tag in either grenades. Low to the ground air grenades will hobble full screen, and Deadpool's grenades are different in that you can't interact with his grenades with a projectile, like easily. So Chris can't like shoot the grenade in midair and make it, or like mid bounce rather, or have to start bouncing and make it explode harmlessly. But then if you do that, you're going to get hit by regular bullets, and it's like Deadpool could just pester Chris endlessly, and it's extremely difficult for him to challenge from any regard. And the only time I feel like I hit Deadpool players is because they get overly aggressive, or they get bored of zoning out Chris. Oh, thanks for the follow, Robert. Because the one advantage Chris has is his health, and the fact that Deadpool doesn't do that much chip damage means he survives for a long time, and it usually ends up going down to time. Whenever, like when I played against B-Blue in the tournament, again he's playing on 100 MS or whatever, I did win the match, but Chris did very little. It was very much Sentinel and Dante that did the work. But it's one of those matches you have to get very hard reads on when to Magnum, or when to super jump, and just hope the Deadpool loses patience. But a patient Deadpool is impossible to beat, I think. It always goes down to time. I think it's definitely harder than I don't know. I feel like these four are kind of close together and why they're difficult. Maybe even Magneto as well, but I think Zero is still the worst matchup. We can talk about Dormammu as well. I think Dormammu's... I wouldn't put Dormammu in 6-3. I'd put Dormammu as probably the worst 4-6. The reason being is anything Dormammu does on the ground will get Magnums. Like Magnum very much dictates the grounded game as well. It's the kind of trick in quotations is very similar to playing against these two, where you count Dormammu's air actions, and so you know when they have to land, and then that's when you attack or approach or whichever as well. But it's similar to playing against Morogine, where you just have to let Dormammu get spells. You can't stop him getting spells, and you have to accept that as the Chris player. But if Dormammu does pillar, you can interrupt a Magnum between the two pillars. I think one of the things that makes it much worse for Chris is the sequence that Spartan Throne's been doing as of late, which is against characters with no air mobility, is snapping them out, putting down a flame carpet, super jump up forward, air dash down S for an ambiguous left-right unblockable. Chris can't do anything about it. If you have no air mobility, you're going to get hit by that, and you cannot interrupt and deal with it. But it's pretty tricky for Dormammu to get hit on Chris. Chris can go prone under the dark matter, the forward heavy. Yeah, against some characters it's a mix up, against everyone else it's guaranteed. And Chris is one of the characters it's guaranteed on. I think this is also a problem because Dormammu can kill Chris from one hit as well. But I think there's too much of the game where Dormammu isn't interacting with Chris, whereas all 6 of these characters here can pester Chris constantly as well. But the reason I put Dormammu up here is the fact that Chris is so vulnerable to his incoming mix-ups. The fact that he can die to Dormammu if he gets hit as well. Whereas the thing these 3 and Trish have in common is they usually aren't going to kill Chris if they hit him. And the only reason Doom is above Trish is because Doom can kill Chris if he hits him from a clean enough hit as well, but doesn't apply the same level of pressure that Dormammu can, because Dormammu's a teleport character. Because if you do one bad Magnum, you get teleported on, you die. And Dormammu doesn't approach in the same way that these 5 do, where you can't like put a button out in the air and hope Dormammu dashes into it, because he will usually get in from behind you or from directly above you. And if you throw a grenade wrong, he can just Dark Hole you, and Dark Hole will negate the grenade and hit Chris and does like 100k. And Dormammu getting meter is much more dangerous than these 5, or than these 4 getting meter. Of course, Virgil's an exception as well. But this is a bad matchup versus Akuma. I think this match is pretty interesting. I think this is... It's definitely not even. Is it? Akuma's an interesting one. I think he might be the easiest 6-4. Because this is a matchup where the game plan for Chris and Akuma is both very straightforward. I think, again, if Akuma tries to throw a single grounded fireball, it gets magnumed. Usually when I see Akuma throw a grounded fireball, it's because they want to bait the magnum and then do beam super, but the beam super doesn't do that much damage against Chris. It does like 280k or something, and Chris can afford to take that damage in neutral. But the Akuma kind of flipping around throwing fireballs, he's very liable to get dashed underneath. You know, I think this is more kind of, if anything, it might be down here. A big problem Akuma has is the low health. If he gets hit by a single magnum, that character will explode, because he's a 750k health character. I think Chris can interact. The only thing Chris is really threatened by is beam super, and if Chris is full health against Akuma, just firing off beam supers, that's fine. I think this is a weird matchup where his teleport might actually be pretty good to get to the other side of a grenade or something. I don't know if it triggers landmines. I assume it does because it's functionally the same as Wesker's. And I don't know how useful Tatsu actually is in this matchup, because again, with all projectile nullification stuff, is it will hit the grenade but not the flame carpet. So if Akuma does like medium Tatsu, he might have one hit negate the flame grenade, one hit negate the carpet, in which case that's a problem. It makes the landmine much less effective, because you can Tatsu win and hit Chris, and the projectile hitbox will negate the landmine explosion. And Akuma can kill Chris. Not easily, but he can kill Chris as well, which is a problem. But I think the way that Akuma approaches leaves him very vulnerable, because he has to do a very telegraphed dive kick, which will lose to a try. Akuma's still in the air flips. No, but you do the same thing you do with Doom, where you just put loads of things on the ground and wait for him to inevitably come down, and you just have to keep track of his air actions. But I think when he's in the air, there's so much less that's threatening if you just throw a fire grenades and stand in the fire grenades, because he's such a close range character. This is very much dictated by how much meter Akuma has. Honestly, yeah, what goes up must come down. I feel like I can see other Chris players do it as well, but you can see I try and catch on to how other people do things in the air, because there are people that are very unpredictable in the air, and Mystery is one of them, where he'll take to the sky and like instantly come back down, and he doesn't do exactly. When he was playing Dormammu, he was doing very pattern based offense, but with his other character he doesn't. But I think Akuma leaves himself too vulnerable with his approach. Yeah, we've already been doing this for like an hour and a half. Yeah, I feel like I could talk about just for days. Oh, this is another one. Schumer's real bad for Chris. Sorry, Chris is real bad for Schumer. This is a match. Something that's in common with these five is you put down a landmine, stand on the landmine, and you win. And there's really nothing they can do to stop you from doing that. But especially, I might actually put Schumer lower than Felicia, because he can't do anything full screen because he gets magnumed. He can't attack with worse than Felicia, worse in the game. Yeah, Doppelgangers loves this matchup. I used to joke for ages this matchup was even, just for the joke that Schumer's offense against Chris is extremely good. It's very difficult to push block Schumer away adequately, because if the Schumer player is even remotely good, especially the really good ones, will be able to manipulate push blocks in their favor. But yeah, one landmine. Landmine's even better than Flame Grenade in this matchup, because the landmine exists exactly in front of Chris. There's one move Schumer has that works well against it, which is his air heavy, the down forward beam. You have to do an air dash heavy beam from like maximum distance, and it will hit Chris without getting hit by the landmine, and then you cancel into light Mystic Smash. But at that point, if you're aware the Schumer player is doing that, awares, and you've seen them do it once, you can just throw a grenade at them, and the matchup's over. Schumer can't do a flamethrower properly. Schumer dies in one hit to Chris. Chris doesn't have to adjust his combos for Schumer. There's one thing Chris has to adjust, but it affects almost nothing damage-wise. And Shuma, the only thing Shuma has going for him is he can kill Chris. But he has to have like 3 bars, I think, but he can kill Chris. Yeah, exactly. So Shuma has really good offense when he corners Chris. So if Chris can, if the game's played enough that Chris has been snapped out, and then the Chris team has killed enough characters to get down to Shuma, and then Shuma kills your team to get Shuma back in, so it's Shuma versus Chris alone, then it's much more problem. But in neutral, it's agonizing. I feel bad for the Shuma players when I play Chris against Shuma. But yeah, that matchup is real bad. This is not counting Spartan Throne. Iron Fist is down here as well. Iron Fist is like here. Iron Fist is he has nothing. He can't do anything to get against Chris. It's very much like entirely based around Iron Fist assist to do anything. But he cannot do with Flamethrower. He cannot do with Landmine. He cannot do with Incendiary Grenade. It's very much a skill-based matchup, which is the only reason I lose to Spartan Throne's Iron Fist. But even then, when he plays point Iron Fist against me, he still doesn't really hit me with Iron Fist. Yeah, he has to YOLO Iron Rage. But if we're taking into consideration the way to play against these matchups is you have to guess and YOLO a lot. That's why Iron Fist is down here. He has to absolutely just guess, and if he guesses wrong, he dies. The Iron Fist's particular advantage is that he can kill Chris with optimized combos if he starts with like a stand medium. But if he gets a throw, which is the most likely thing he's going to start a combo with, it's over. Oh, he also can't deal with forward, meaning you can't deal with flamethrower, with a shotgun, sorry. Shotgun pushes... It's the same thing as Hulk. He pushes Iron Fist back into the flame carpet, you throw another grenade and just create a sequence. You make the Iron Fist player have to push block you, so you push block full screen. You're full screening and you set up shop in the corner. And Iron Fist can't really do anything about you when you're in the corner. Yeah, his ground movement biggest advantage, and you take that away from him. As simple as that. Cool. Who else should we talk about as well? Spider-Man. I think Spider-Man. Living and beat Chris to using Chris that jam. No, I think he starts Chris as like Chris is basically the meter build tank of the game. He face tanks, gets loads of bar. If he hits Morgan, if he gets like a 99-second air throw, he X factors it. But otherwise, it's usually Wesker Kruma. Yeah, keeping calm is a big thing as well. I think Spider-Man's definitely a 6-4 matchup for Chris. I feel like this probably is an even matchup, but Spider-Man is my worst matchup as a player. I just hate playing against Spider-Man. But Spider-Man is definitely better than Trish in this matchup. Because he's very similar way he can stall in the air for 100 million years. But he can follow through on a lot of stuff as well. Web throw is a big factor, because web throw will low profile Magnum and will ignore grenades. Well, web throw is weird because web throw has a projectile hitbox. So if web throw touches the grenade, it will explode and do nothing. But if you throw a grenade and it lands on the floor, Spider-Man can web throw you before you're doing a grenade, like as you start doing it or as you finish it as well. But yeah, the fact he can block during his air dash means he can jump in, actually hit you, make you block a button and land and block before the flame carpet hits him. Spider-Man's also one of the characters that doesn't get juggled by... Do I have... Yeah, here we go. I've got a document here. I think he's one of the characters that doesn't get juggled properly by... yeah, he doesn't get juggled properly by flame carpet. So even if he does dash in and get hit by Incendiary, he just techs out and you don't get a combo. So it's hard to make him... The main thing you'd want to do against a character like this is make them hit a flame grenade, and you can't do that. So you have to revolve around the landmine. And the landmine is much less protective from mid-range, and you're more likely to get web thrown as well. Prone is surprisingly good at this matchup because it goes under web throw. It stops Spider-Man doing stuff on the grounds. But yeah, Spider-Man also has the damage to kill Chris, and he has an inescapable reset because you can do the ultimate web throw reset that Chris can't do anything about. I actually think Spider-Man's more kind of up here. And Spider-Man's got really fast buttons. His crouching heavy goes about as far as Chris's crouching medium. But this is very much a matchup where you have to... Like, if you don't have a really good assist to back you up, this matchup feels impossible. But it's very much about chicken blocking things like fake offense, trying to throw gaps in things, anti-airing Spider-Man as he comes in with your normals. Like crouching medium is a very deceptively good anti-air because he swipes it from over his shoulder. It hits this really good angle from above his head below the ground, so it anti-airs really well. Stand heavy is really good in this matchup. But it's all very kind of committal based things. Actually, maybe Spider-Man might honestly be like up here. Purely because Spider-Man can hit Chris pretty easily and then do a reset that you can't escape as well. The probably only real problem is Spider-Man can't do chip damage well, so it's either get the hit or nothing. Like you can't whittle Chris down as well. So these are matches that very much tend to go to time a lot as well as a result. Yeah, they are really good. Wolverine. Wolverine is definitely Chris favored. I think it's harder than Tron matchup. It's harder than Frank as well. I'll put Frank here. I think Wolverine has a lot of trouble with landmine specifically, because that halts a lot of his offense. Like even if you get a dive kick trade, Wolverine can't combo. He gets pressure afterwards, but you can't combo from it. But Wolverine has a lot of trouble dealing with Chris just holding flamethrower and then cancelling it to landmine because you can't berserker slash through it. He can dive kick from above it, but from a very steep angle, and he has to do it from high up enough that if you know someone's trying to get a read on you, you can dash underneath the dive kick and punish it as he lands. As well, the main problem for this matchup is 99 seconds. Is if Chris survives at 99 seconds, you'll usually do fine. But Chris has a lot of trouble against Wolverine at 99 seconds. It makes me want to put him more here then. Let's move Hawkeye. I think, yeah, the main thing is if Wolverine gets in and you don't have a grenade in front of you, it's a lot of trouble. 99 seconds is extremely good for Wolverine. He's probably arguably best 99 in the game. One of them anyway. But he gets zoned out very easily by Chris as a result. It's very assist dependent. Again, if we're assuming Wolverine has Plasma Beam, not that much changes. Usually Wolverine's going to want to call Plasma Beam to negate your assists, but Plasma Beam will lose to Flamethrower, and then Wolverine loses to Flamethrower as well. But it's a matchup you want to fight from the corner. Putting mid-screen gives Wolverine more space to get over the top of you. But if you can have your back to the corner, landmine on the ground, stand Flamethrower, anti-air with flame grenades, then you'll usually do fine. But not the end of the world for Chris. Who else have we got? Strider's a pretty problem matchup for Chris. I'm just leaving it for now, but I don't know where I'll actually put him. I don't often have to play this matchup. I'm usually not that worried against Strider. Strider being a teleport character is a problem because it makes him go around projectiles. He can slide underneath a lot of Magnum calls. You don't really Magnum in this matchup because you're not going to hit anything with a Magnum. The Bird Bomb will eat up a lot of the durability for projectiles. He has to hold a lot of Strider's resets. I mean, everyone does as well, but again, he has no air mobility, so he can't just kind of super jump and escape from stuff. Grom will literally blow up Chris for throwing grenades, because he can attack him from out of range, and he still goes underneath stuff. But of course, the damage is the big thing. He has to hit Chris like 4 times. Genuinely, maybe has to hit Chris 3 times to kill him properly as well. So I think Strider's got strong enough neutral that he can make Chris whiff a lot of stuff. He can poke from a very effective range because shooting a satellite will make grenades blow up harmlessly or interrupt Chris throwing a grenades. And Chris can't really stop Strider from getting orb out. I mean, no one can really stop Strider getting an orb out because it's like 5 frames up. So I think this is... I'm almost tempted to put this like here. But like the big thing is the damage, honestly. I think if Strider can open up Chris and move around his stuff really well, but Chris can also throw... It's like... I feel really bad comparing this to the Felicia matchup. It's like the Felicia matchup where you put down a flame carpet and you stand in the flame carpet. And it makes Strider have to poke a lot. Which he can do pretty safely, but because Chris has a lot of health, he's not going to take that much chip damage. and you can afford to like get hit a couple times and that as well. But it requires a Strider player to be very kind of on board with the matchup. Against a worse Strider player, this matchup is pretty easy, but otherwise I think it's fairly even between these two, because Flame Grenade's very effective. This is a weird one. I think Shenko's really bad for Chris. I think second drop by anyway. Yeah, I know it's pretty late in France, isn't it? But I think so. Chris can't stop the gong. It's definitely worse than Trish. Because if the gong hits the flame grenade, it makes the flame grenade hers. If you shoot a magnum, it gets reflected and you get wall bounced. There's really nothing you can do. It's very much a stalemate matchup because Shenko can't do anything to Chris. I guess this probably goes more like here. But you're... I'll just leave it back up there. But because Shenko can kind of put a gong out and just walk behind it, and is fine because you just can't interact with it. I haven't played it against enough Shenkos to really know if you can do this. I'm wondering if you can do a grenade launcher on reaction to gong and punish it, but it's not like a reliable option because you don't always have a bar. And as a result of this, Chris doesn't build a lot of bar in neutral against Shenko because he's not blocking a lot of things, but he's also not hitting Shenko with enough. This is very similar to the Deadpool matchup, but much less threatening. Because you just have to hope the Shenko player gets bored and stops throwing gongs over and over again. And then you can super jump and like shoot over the gong as she moves away from the gong or is in position as well. But otherwise, this is a pretty like pestering matchup similar to these two. I'd say Trish is probably worse than them. This matchup just requires you to not be stupid and just keep magnuming her and losing and taking chunks out your own health bar. And just kind of let her get in and then hit her, like try and counter poke her as well. Because Shenko's standing heavy goes much further than all Chris's normals, but she doesn't get anything for 5 heavy. Unless she gets standing heavy into counter hit stand heavy into star and gets a stun combo. But if she's using RNG to get an opener on you from that far away, then yeah. But yeah, Shenko also just doesn't do enough damage to Chris, and because she's also not building enough bar in neutral, she doesn't have the bar to loop supers. But it's an annoying matchup that is probably more Shenko favoured, but is not. It's bad because nothing happens. Someone talked about Viper earlier. I think Viper's a really big problem for Chris. Seismo is the key. So Seismo will blow up grenades safely. Seismo will blow up grenades safely. Hit Chris before he can throw out any grenades. It can low profile gunshots sometimes. Because of how it hits, if it trades with a Magnum, Chris doesn't get a combo because he teched out so high up in the air and after so long because it's got so much hit stun as well. Viper's offense is extremely good against it. You do have to. It's one of the matches where you actually have to be careful of EX Thunder Knuckle. Not from full screen because if there's a flame cupper on the ground and Viper uses EX Thunder Knuckle from full screen, yeah. If you can hit her legs, then you're fine. So prone gunshot, flame cupper already on the ground, you will negate EX Thunder Knuckle. From close up, it's a problem. Because if you throw a grenade point blank and she EX Thunder Knuckles, she will crumple you, get hit by all 5 hits of the grenade and gets a combo. All 5 hits of the flame carpet, sorry, as well. It makes landmine irrelevant, it makes calling assist very dangerous. But as soon as she's within like a quarter of the screen range, you're fucked. You can't safely poke anything. If you dash, you're probably going to get Seismosed. If you throw a grenade, you're going to get EX Thunder Knuckle, you're probably going to get Seismosed as well. And Viper does a ton of damage. So she will usually whittle you down enough in neutral that if she hits you with a 1-bar combo, even like a scaled hit like an instant overhead or an assist start, she'll probably be able to kill Chris as well. But I think the saving grace here is against very impatient Vipers. This is... Yeah, I think Seismo is a very defined... this honestly might be worse than Firebrand, actually. Yeah, I think it's worse than Fire. I think Seismo has more of a controlling effect on the neutral than Firebrand's Fireballs and Bon Voyage does as well. But you just can't get anything started. Viper's like is one of those characters where because she's controlling the ground much better than you are, you feel tempted to super jump, and then when you super jump, she uses that time to get in. Probably the saving grace is that Viper's ground dashes are pretty bad, so she can't easily like if she's a full screen and you're full screen and you do super jump, gunshot, machine gun, she can't cover the ground faster than machine gun does as well, which is in your favor. But she has a lot of really good anti-push block offense, so she doesn't give you a lot of room to breathe, to push block you off and then get a landmine or get a flame grenade out when you're in the corner as well. He has to hold a lot of her incomings as well. Like unblockable based teams, you just have to take the hit or get unblockables, because you have no ability to like air dash up and make things happen as well. Again, it's not Chris exclusive, but it's much worse for Chris than most of the other characters in the game. That's probably it. Chris's normals are better than Viper's. Crouch medium goes further than all the Viper's normals. Stand heavy's pretty good. Viper's stand heavy's pretty good against Chris's because it will it's like a Street Fighter poke where you'll slap crouch medium from above, but if you press it too early, it'll trade. It'll not even trade. Chris will just win. Yeah, I've seen Mystery when we were playing long sets before. He started doing wild things where he was trying to like focus attack FADC through my projectiles, and it was working to a decent effect as well. Because Viper can afford to take a lot of damage because it builds her more bar, which means she's more likely to kill Chris as well. But I think it's a really bad matchup for Chris, but I don't think it's as screen dominating as the 6 because Chris he can't even delay his 4. It's just yeah, exactly. He just has to hold that. I think that might make it worse than Dormammu actually. No, I think because this really depends, I think, whether on here and here. I think if you're playing against a Viper that's very much willing to play a fully lame game and just rapid seismo you over and over and over and over again, then I think this is almost a 7-3. I think if you're playing against if you're playing against an Invasion Viper that gets in, then you have a chance to hit her. But this is very much... The matchup is defined by your movement as Chris, your positioning. You need to be able to move around and get reads on where she's going to seismo, make her whiff a seismo, and hope that she does like a rapid seismo in the wrong direction so you can magnum it and then you get damage from that. But you're not very likely to be hitting Viper. Also, her 99 is really good against Chris as well. But yeah, I think this is here, but not as... These 6 have such an easy time dictating the pace of the match. I think Viper is probably 4-6 barely 3-7. I think... Let's do Beautiful Joe here. This is a matchup I used to think was 7-3. But Flamethrower is so good against Joe because it beats Red Hot Kick, it eats up the durability in his fireballs, it stops him getting in on the ground as well, and then you can use that to cancel into grenades, which lets you move into the grenades, which means that he has to focus on doing... This is probably more like... I'll leave it down here for now, but I'll position it later. Yeah, but it forced him to have to rely on his charge zooms. Probably if Beautiful Joe ducked under Magnum when he was charging a boomerang, this would be easily a 7-3. But because his head's just big enough, he will get hit by a Magnum when he's charging boomerang without letting it go. Of course, the problem is always going to be when Beautiful Joe gets boomerangs, fully charged boomerangs started, it's almost impossible for Chris to stop. I think the thing people kind of forget about is there's gaps in between each hits of the charged boomerang, so you can jump out or dash out of the way as well, but it's difficult. And again, because Chris has no air mobility, it's harder for him to escape the boomerang without leaving himself vulnerable as well. So I think Joe's probably going to be more kind of up here. One of the problems Chris has is when Joe is in your face after you block a red hot kick, it's much more a problem. Because his offense is very like anti-push block in that regard as well, because he can wait for you to push block and then air dash and cancel the momentum and go in that way as well. But I think this might not even be that bad. Like it's definitely in Joe's favor. I don't know, I have to think. I haven't played against Joe enough to really say, but just from the sets I have played against Joe players in the past, and my knowledge of the game now, I think I'd say Spider-Man's and Wesker's worse. Yeah, I'll leave Joe there for now and I'll think about it later on. Phoenix is an atrocious matchup. This is really bad for Chris. She's got way better mobility. She low profiles everything. She can teleport around the grenades. Her heavy fireball is also 10 durability and will trade with Magnum. So you have to quickly judge that she's doing a heavy fireball and react with the Magnum, because if you go for a reader with the Magnum, she will teleport, she will punish you. She has overdrive, which makes grenades much less effective, because she will just blow through the flame carpet, negate it, and then hit Chris afterwards as well. And she can just float about the top of the screen forever, especially once she's Dark. GG's. I mean, Dark Phoenix is the best character in the game, so who cares? But against Chris especially, there's just uncontestable as well. I think because because these two in particular, because Phoenix is more proactive with how she threatens Chris, I'm tempted to put more Phoenix up here, purely because the fact that her teleport's so good and she has overdrive. That's basically it. She can't kill Chris, but she can set up really strong post knockdown mix-ups. That's pretty straightforward. It's very good flight character, anti-projectile options beats Chris, is how it is. Sentinel? I think Sentinel's pretty even. Sentinel has to be very careful about doing anything on the ground, because if he does drones, he'll get magnumed. If he does spit really aggressively, he'll get magnumed. Chris's prone is very useful in this matchup, because again, it goes underneath crouching heavy as well. I think the other thing too is that with Sentinel does any grounded buttons, he's very vulnerable to being super jumped against. I think that this is a very meter dependent matchup too, is Sentinel kind of needs to have high percent of force to interrupt Chris doing magnums, but even if he does, it's not that threatening unless you spend X Factor to do it. So Sentinel has to spend a lot of resources. One of Sentinel's big advantages is floating about at kind of, again, assuming these 6 characters are where Chris has stood now, floating about kind of here and poking with stand heavy. You want to be just outside of throw range, and in a range where you can negate grenades with your air buttons. But it's, again, if the Chris can kind of move around the grenades, he can get underneath you if you're trying to focus on hitting the grenades and not Chris. He can move away and make stuff whiff. You can super jump and challenge if you're whiffing a jump heavy as well. And he's not that scared of Sentinel's offense. I think one of the good things for Sentinel in this matchup is he's the only character in the game that if you do Magnum, dash, forward medium, gunshot Magnum, Sentinel doesn't get hard knocked down by the second one. Every other character does except Sentinel. I'm not quite sure why, but it stops him from taking an extra 150k, or like extra 100 or so k from Magnum chains, and it makes comboing to level 3 much harder. So usually towards the end of the game is where you'll see like a Chris Sentinel matchup, or Chris will have 3 bars by the time Sentinel's in, and you can't do Magnum, gunshot Magnum level 3 and kill Sentinel, which is a problem. But then Sentinel also has a lot of trouble killing Chris, because Sentinel's hits will usually come from scaled starters, and he'll either have 1 or no assists and have to spend X Factor to do it. But overall, I quite like this matchup, playing it as well. I think this is leaning towards Chris favorites, because similar to some of the other characters like Akuma, he can float around in the air forever, but it doesn't do anything. He can't threaten Chris from the air. And Chris isn't that worried about armor, because he's not going to attack Sentinel from range. He's going to be poking Sentinel as well. Shotgun's very effective in this matchup. Magnum is more of like a spit punish tool, but when you watch me play against Sentinel players, or just Sentinel players play against Chris players, you'll see once they realize stand heavy, crouch heavy is stop being effective, they'll stop doing it, and they'll go back to floating about. And then Sentinel flying about is more vulnerable than Sentinel moving on the ground, and Sentinel can't move on the ground because of Chris's guns. So that's why I think this is more of an even matchup, but kind of leaning towards Chris favoured because of the damage thing as well. Who else is there? Jill and X23 are almost exactly the same in this regard, where they're like Wolverine but worse in terms of their offense. So let's put them here. I think part of the reason why I'd very likely put X23, maybe X23. The difference between Wolverine and X23 is in their dive kicks. Wolverine's dive kick is so much better than X23's. The X23 has a lot more trouble dealing with the same thing that Wolverine has to deal with, but without a way to kind of instantly close the gap in the way that Wolverine can do with assist plus Berserker Slash. She can't really stop assists that well. She can't protect her assists that well as well, so she's very vulnerable to Flamethrower. Her level 3 incoming, not just getting in stay on Chris. If he gets in, he can. Chris has options to deal with Wolverine's offense, unless you're playing against like an immaculate Wolverine who perfectly calls their assists every time. You can usually push block and find a gap to put a landmine down, and once you've got a landmine down, the match is much easier as well. X23 is much more vulnerable to being push blocked in that regard, because if she tries to use her medium Talon Claw to get in and above Chris, then she can't do the light Talon Claw to dive kick in, so she's much more vulnerable to being thrown or getting just moved underneath. And her down heavy is much less effective because that will get hit by landmines and grenades if it hits Chris from above his head, because it has a very low hurt box. But my reasoning for Wolverine, I don't know if you were here for it as well, is once Wolverine's out, he stays out. The big problem is 99, and if Chris gets knocked down by Wolverine, but if there's any amount of space, he has a lot of trouble dealing with Flamethrower and landmines and fighting against Chris who cornered himself. For Jill has a luxury in her Feral Stance dash is projectile. It's just invincible anyway, so she can dash through a lot of things. So she can get past a landmine or a grenade. She can make a landmine explode harmlessly, and she can make grenades wasteful because she gets past them, and then is in between. Chris is in between a grenade and the attacker rather than the grenade in between both. That's pretty much all she has. Again, her rushdown is really good. Her wake up mix-ups are arguably better than Wolverine's because she can instant overhead Chris with jump medium on the way up. Jump heavy on the way up. But that's pretty much it. She doesn't have much else. Again, she struggles with the same thing all the grounded-based characters do, which is Flamethrower and Incendiary Grenade. I suppose the only difference between Jill and the other two is that she has a way to lock Chris down from full screen with Machine Gun Spray. So assist plus Machine Gun Spray to get locked down and then go in behind that is pretty good. But the main thing that Wolverine has over Jill is once Chris is blocking an assist, just using Berserker Slash and then cancelling his Berserker Charge to stay in his face. And then rushing offense from there. Whereas Jill is still vulnerable to... Like, there's anti-Jill tech when it comes to her using Machine Gun Spray. But overall, these three are pretty much the same matchup-wise. But X23 the worst of the three. Storm. Storm's a weird one. This is definitely Storm favoured. I'd put it pretty much exactly where Trish is. One of the things that's kind of annoying for Chris actually is is Tiger Knee heavy Whirlwind. If Chris has already blocked something, because it's durable enough that it can be a pester to Magnum, and Lightning Sphere, the one that goes down forward, because it's so durable it will eat up Magnum and it will blow up grenades and still go through them, which is a problem. She can stall around from the top of the screen really well, but because her air movement is slightly better than Trish's is, I think she can attack better. But Trish, I'd put her here maybe, because Storm also does negative damage. I'm not sure what side I'd put Storm on here as well, but they both effectively the same game plan where they want to spend a bar to snipe Chris's assist to stop Chris from using their assist to keep them out, but they don't build enough meter and neutral. I think Storm has an easier time building meter and neutral, so I'd put her here because she can make Chris block things more. Because she covers more angles when she's in the air. So if Chris wants to try and super jump and catch like a grounded Whirlwind for any reason, then Storm can super jump with him, and then do medium lightning sphere or heavy tornado. whirlwind, whatever, and make Chris block something. And she has an easier time building meteor neutral than Chris does. But she's about equally as vulnerable to grenades are as Trish is. But she can kind of attack Chris from ranges where the grenades aren't relevant, whereas Trish will inevitably get in range of the grenades in order to make anything happen. What else we got? Doctor Strange. This is a weird one. This is definitely Strange favoured. I'd say Strange is harder than Doom to deal with. There is one thing Strange has that is ineffective against Chris, and that's ending block strings and Light Mystic Sword. So Light Mystic Sword has 3 hits, and the last hit whiffs on Chris, which means it's completely unsafe. Normally it's 0 on block, and Chris can just punish Strange for doing it. But Strange can just kind of start his hit conversions with light, and there's nothing Chris can do to stop doing that. Flames of the Faultine, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, have the same durability as Magnum. That's Doctor Strange, which means you can just kind of Flames of the Faultine into a Magnum. Where is it? So it has 3 low durability points, but for some reason it just negates stuff. Oh, you got to see Sunny Joe, our reigning champion of Revolution. But similar to the other characters in this range, is Strange in flight mode can set up Graces, shoot a flame at the Grace, and then teleport. I think purely for the reason, I think Joe's probably more down here actually. I think the teleports on these 3 are more valuable than Joe's offense. And Strange has the advantage of he can kill Chris off a good enough hit, because he builds so much hit. We'll see you later, Tom. See you on. If I don't see you tomorrow or speak to you tomorrow, I'll see you on Sunday. And it's a pretty straightforward matchup. Magnum is good against I because it goes through I. Mystic Sword is... I think Mystic Sword beats Magnum as well. My brain's running slow because I've been doing this for a little while. But it's just a problem for Chris. Like, the main thing is the teleport. Is Chris can't do anything without getting teleported on. So what you kind of need to do is throw a grenade, stand on the grenade, and just create a stalemate. It's one of those ones where you have to force nothing to happen in order to make it even for Chris, but Strange is better at forcing an advantage state than Chris is. I think a lot of Strangers don't think about how good his keep away is. I guess, don't know, trying to translate. Ami, cut, August, Roll, Tossman. Phoenix right again. That's mostly right in terms of what I was thinking as well. But I'll share a picture tomorrow and we'll see if that stands right. Yeah, teleport characters are nuisance for Chris. We'll just do the rest of these in order as well. I genuinely don't know enough about the Ami matchup. There's only one person I've played that played the matchup. Well, technically 2, because Kunura. Alright, see you later, Joe. No. But I think every time I played this matchup, it's been an absolute nuisance. The projectile counter can be done on reaction to Magnums. And while Ami doesn't get a conversion from it, she gets set up from it, which is big. Chris has a lot of trouble dealing with her in Rosary stance with Cold Star. You have to go for reads with Super Jump Gunshot Magnum. And then if you do that, Ami just kind of moves in underneath it. Or can see you change stance, go to Solar Flare and counter it. She ducks under a lot of things. She's one of the characters that if she's crouching, she doesn't get hit by all hits of Machine Gun. So your chip's a lot less effective. Grenades are good against her because she can't hit you from high enough to hit you from outside the explosion radius. And she also doesn't do enough damage to Chris. But I think she's also very good at stalling Chris out. And once she's in, she stays in. She's got very good kind of anti-rushdown offense. She can super grenade throws and gunshots on reaction with Akame Shuffle, but it doesn't do that much damage. I'd say she's definitely harder than Storm. I'd probably leave Ami there for now. This matchup probably is a lot worse if I played against like someone like Rock Mode, for example. But just from my understanding of what both characters are capable of and the Amis I've played against, because Risen's good, but he doesn't play the game as much as other like dedicated Ami players. I think Ami kind of sits about here. Cap is an interesting one. I think this matchup is probably slightly Cap favoured, because at first you think, okay, Cap's never got charging, so I just blows through everything, so whatever. And he does, but it becomes a very centralizing part of the matchup, is both players being aware of the range Cap can do charging star from and how frequently they want to do it. Because Cap, if he charging stars into a flame carpet, so if he ends up at a flame carpet, he will get hit. If he charging cars through a flame carpet, he'll be fine. So it's one of those matchups you kind of want to play from mid-screen, with your back to the corner / kind of mid-screen. The problem is with Captain America doing jump, not Tiger Knee, but jump like shield slash. It's hard to contest. You can, again, throw grenades to interact with the shields over and over and over again to force Cap to move, and then when Cap moves, that's when you press buttons. But Cap jumping, making you block a lot with shield slashes, and then jumping at you with either jump down heavy or even his jump light. His jump light's active for 1,000,000 frames. And he can get a lot of damage, and if he gets a clean enough hit after neutral, he will usually be able to kill Chris from a hit, which is a pretty important thing. But I think Cap in the air has a hard time dealing with Flamethrower, because Flamethrower will negate all forms of shield slash, and is pretty good at anti-airing Cap unless he's directly above you, at which point, if Cap's falling from like a complete degree above you, you shouldn't be doing Flamethrower anyway, you should be dashing away from him. Or underneath him, I should say. But he can attack from outside the grenade explosion radius. He's also got a 4-frame button, which is a big deal. That means he can punish landmine on block easily, because landmine's -6 at best. Oh no, at worst, sorry. So that means even with like stand heavy pushback into landmine, he can usually punish that with crouch light, and I think that's a big factor in the matchup as well, because it means you can't, if you end a block string in landmine, you'll get hit by crouch light. If you end a block string with grenades, he'll charging star through them, or should charging star through them anyway. So your block strings are just crouch medium, stand heavy, and that's it. Even that's dangerous, because if they push block crouch medium very quickly, and you whiff crouch heavy, they can still punish that. I think makes that matchup quite hard. He's more of like a proactive punisher. I'd say he's definitely harder than these three. I don't know if he's better than all of these characters with that though as well, because there's a lot of the game where nothing happens because you're trading projectiles. But he's, yeah, I think that's about right. Chun-Li, I genuinely don't know. I've never played against like a like top Chun-Li or like even a medium level Chun-Li. The most I played against was Sheep playing Chun Morogine, and if that's the case, then this matchup is the worst 7-3 in the game. Chris cannot do anything to Chun-Li, because she can stall in the air for 1,000,000 years. All you do is throw flame grenades until she comes down, and she guesses left, right. If she guesses right, she escapes again. You get 5 bars. In theory, this matchup should be fine for Chris, because if she's playing a normal game plan, then she wants to rush in more, and she's more likely to get hit by grenades. She's got a very linear approach. She can't attack from above the explosion radius of the landmine or the grenades themselves. Also very vulnerable to flamethrower. So I think, honestly, because I don't know, I'm going to put her in even. I think this matchup is like regular team versus regular team is pretty even. Chun Morogine is 7-3, so Chun-Li, if not worse. Dante's another interesting one, because Dante is a teleport character, so it's the worst. But Dante can't just spam airplay, because it doesn't do enough damage to Chip. Doesn't do enough chip damage to Chris, and it is very vulnerable to be. If he's doing it from full screen, it's very vulnerable to getting super jump gunshot. You can't super jump gunshot magnum someone who's airborne, but you will get gunshots off as well. But if you do a super jump gunshot and kind of reading someone doing airplay, Dante will teleport and punish you for it as well. I think the big problem in the matchup is Stinger. Stinger will destroy grenades, it will destroy flame carpet, it will negate landmines as well, and still hit Chris, which is a big factor. Crouching medium is very good at hitting Chris from outside an explosion radius and making the grenades explode harmlessly. But I think, plain and simple, Dante attacks from a range Chris can't deal with that well, and Dante has the two main tools that give Chris a lot of trouble, which is a teleport and projectile negating buttons. So I think I'd probably say Dante is more proactively an issue than Doom is. I'd say he's probably closer to Strange as well. So these are the teleport nuisance characters. Joe's offense is too direct and doesn't have anywhere to deal with projectile grenades once they're on the screen. Phoenix Wright is another one I don't know. I feel like it's pretty even. Chris has his big damaging buttons are slow or one hit. He has a hard time breaking the shield. But so like if you can get into near Maya's face and do flamethrower or make a block of flame grenades or shotgun or something, you can usually break the shield in almost one hit. But it's difficult to stop Phoenix Wright gathering evidence as Chris. It's very similar to a lot of these matchups versus like Dormammu or like Morogene teams, where you just kind of accept that they will get their evidence usually. You just have to deal with it afterwards. He has a lot of trouble once Phoenix Wright gets the photo, the beam, horizontal beam, because it's faster than Chris can deal with. So he has to super jump gunshot, which is fine. Phoenix Wright's got a lot of health, so he can take 4 of them, and the 5th one will kill him. But otherwise, I think this is probably, as bad as it is to say, it's probably a pretty even matchup. Just purely because of Maya's shield. It's very much a matchup defining thing. I'd say I have a harder time fighting against Phoenix Wright than maybe Sentinel. This is probably wrong. Phoenix Wright and Chun-Li are the ones I'm least familiar with as well. Rocket Raccoon is pretty bad for Chris. It's more up here. Rocket's probably only real big thing or two big things. It's one of the things that makes him good as a character is crouching heavy will poke Chris and shoot grenades out of the air harmlessly. Chris can't get all the 8 hits of machine gun on Rocket, so it's hard to get a lot of chip damage in. Any magnums or any guns just get teleported on, and Rocket can punish it as well. And Rocket can poke from the air with his like jump and then do Spitfires into whatever the directions, but because he can't block on the way down, he's more liable to get super jump magnums as he lands. So I don't think it's terrible, but it's bad enough that Rocket Raccoon has a handful of tools that just beat Chris's tools effectively as well. I think it's harder than Trish. It feels very similar to Storm in that regards. I mean, honestly, the teleport makes me want to put him higher. But the big thing separate from these 4 is Rocket Raccoon is so little damage by comparison to these 4. People say Dante's low damage. He's if you do good Dante combos, he's not. Wesker's low damage. But the rest of Wesker's neutral is such a counter to Chris's kit. I think this is more appropriate. Ryu is another pretty good matchup for Chris. Unlike Akuma, he doesn't have any way to nullify grenades as he comes in. I think this is easier than... yeah, I think it's more appropriate there. A lot of his fireballs will just get magnumed through them as well. If he tries to charge up his explosive Hadouken, he gets super jumped on and gets magnumed. If he tries to go for a lot of like light Tatsu, TK light Tatsu offense, he's going to get literally blown up by landmines. I think Chris is one of the characters that Ryu's instant overhead jump light works on. Again, I'm not playing against Ryu enough to know that. But it sounds like it's the kind of thing that would be the case. But otherwise, it's very straightforward. The only thing Ryu can do is look for beam supers to punish assists. But if Ryu's doing that without hitting Chris with Hadokens enough, then he's not building off the bar, and you kind of get a net loss, and then Chris will just whittle down Ryu faster than Ryu can whittle down Chris's team as well. Flamethrower is also very good against it because you could just nullify multiple Hadokens behind him. But I think the reason why it's not in 7-3 is pretty much entirely because of the Beam Super, the instant overheads, and Ryu's got his crouching medium is pretty good at poking Chris, and that's more or less it. Iron Man is probably, I mean, he's very akin to Doom. I was going to talk about it earlier as well. The reason why I'd put him above Doom is Smart Bomb. It covers a much better angle, does a lot more chip, and it's harder for Chris to negate as well. Unibeam Unibeam going horizontally is pretty neat because it stops Chris from super jumping, but similar to Doom, you have to be very careful about doing grounded Unibeams because of Chris can super jump gunshot magnum it on reaction. If Chris is close-ish to the corner and tries to super jump a Unibeam on reaction, you can dash and repulsor blast him for a punish on the way down as well. The other really annoying thing for Chris is assuming Chris is in these 6 characters where they're standing here, if Iron Man is kind of up here, he can poke with his down heavy, like down heavy fly, down heavy unfly, or even like down heavy fly, down heavy into Smart Bomb, down heavy unfly, down heavy. Like you can poke him really well. It's a hard time for Chris to deal with. But Iron Man can just stall forever. But it's also pretty hard for him to actually hit Chris as well, but you can just poke at him forever. Super Skull's another one I genuinely don't know. I'll come back to him later as well. I think Taskmaster's pretty even. I'd probably put him... I'd say he's harder than Akuma. Taskmaster has to be very careful in this matchup. A lot of them will kind of autopilot Charging Star into Stingmaster, the horizontal stab, because that's -3, but there's a gap in between them so you can chicken block and punish it. Taskmaster can't do grounded arrows because grounded arrows will lose to grounded Magnum or Super Jump Magnum. Also, Flamethrower does a really good job at dealing with angled arrows because it will negate the arrows before they get to Chris and let your assist go in as well, and it negates Taskmaster's assists as they're coming into. I think the big problem Chris has, and it's something that a lot of Taskmasters kind of neglect to do, is his rush down. Is his web throw, web swing cancel offense is tricky for Chris to stop. And Taskmaster, unlike both Ryu and Akuma, and even Trish as well, is he can snipe with supers much more frequently because you'll be blocking more arrows because you don't want to make too many wrong reads against Taskmaster, because if you super jump when he doesn't do anything, he will just dash underneath you and get in and hit you on the way down with Charging Star. So I think Taskmaster's more proactive at being able to hit Chris, but he's also more vulnerable at the same regard. Whereas a lot of these characters, while they can kind of hit Chris from outside of his effective range, they're still not necessarily doing much, but they stop Chris from doing anything in return most of the time. But I think these 3 are harder for Chris than Taskmaster is. And Super Scroll. I think Super Scroll is a problem because he has his command grab, which will grab Chris from outside of his gun range. There's a grenade range, sorry. That's pretty much all he has. Meteor Smash loses to grenades, it loses to landmine. If you're fighting with your back to the corner, which you probably should do with Chris, again, this matchup again, you aren't going to get crossed up, so that's much less effective. But if you're then fighting your back to the corner, you're more vulnerable to command grabs, which is the only real thing Super Scroll has against Chris. Super Scroll does have unescapable resets on Chris too, so this is definitely a bad matchup for Chris. I think because it's a more proactive bad matchup, it's probably in the same regards as Ami, where Super Scroll is vulnerable if they're being more aggressive, but if they're controlling more of that mid-range, it's much harder for Chris to deal with as well. So I think that's I'm pretty happy with that list as well. There's some ordering stuff that could probably be different as well. Like, there's a couple of credits I'm not terribly sure of. And probably some credits I should move up into 3-7, like Viper or Dormammu. Yeah, I used to think Firebrand was one of Chris's worst matchups, but really, like, thinking about it like this, these are definitely worse for Chris. Overall, he just loses against all the good characters besides some, and beats the bad characters. that's what kind of polarizing character Chris is. Cool. Let's save that. Yeah, I'll post this in the different Discords to see what discussion comes up. But otherwise, that is... yeah, that's me for now. Thanks for watching, people, and catch you later.